Greetings everyone, this is Gulab here, and now I'm beginning part 2 talking about the cosmology of the Vedas in the Bhagavata Purana, and we're beginning with the subtle vertical dimension. Another concept given in the Puranas is the idea of a subtle vertical dimension. More than just a change in geographical location, to access higher planets one has to also change his consciousness, which can be done only by practicing a spiritual process of self-realization. Not only other planets are very far from Earth, but even if one goes there, one will find only rocks, dust, poisonous gases, and extremes of temperature, without the possibility of interacting with the local inhabitants, which will be living in a different dimension. For example, according to our tridimensional view of reality, the moon is situated at about 384,000 kilometers from Earth, and one can reach it in about 3 days in a space probe. Unfortunately, if one goes there, he will find only dust and rocks. The Puranas, however, state that the moon is actually a celestial planet with a standard of living much superior to our planet. To access it, however, one has to develop a very subtle consciousness, similar to the superior beings who live there. Without this change in consciousness, one may go to the moon, but he will only see rocks. This can be explained with another example. Suppose you want to visit an office on the 98th floor of a prestigious building in Manhattan. You take a taxi and go to the front of the building. You went to the right place on the horizontal dimension. But to reach the office, you need to also travel in the vertical dimension, taking a lift or the stairs, going up until you reach the 98th floor. If somehow your credentials don't allow you to enter the building, you'll be stuck in the street. Similarly, when a human being goes to the moon without the proper consciousness, he will not be able to travel in the subtle vertical dimension and will thus be stuck in the gross dimension, where there is only dust and rocks. Our universe is composed of different dimensions, and we can syntonize in each one according to the particular set of senses we got, which is in turn determined by our previous consciousness. The Puranas states that the celestial moon is actually pretty far from the Earth in the subtle vertical dimension, even further away than the Sun and other planets of our solar system. To reach there, one has to radically change his level of consciousness. Therefore, the process to access the celestial moon involves not only changing one's consciousness and thus traveling in the subtle vertical dimension, but also acquiring a particular set of senses. In the past, this was an art understood by yogis, who were able to travel through the universe by elevating their consciousness and thus transferring themselves to the desired planet. Description of Jambudvip. One of the most notable features of the universe described in the Vedas is Bhumandala, which comprises the intermediary planetary systems. Bhumandala is situated in the middle of the universe and essentially divides it in half, being the lower and dark part reserved to the Asuras and the upper luminous part to the Devas. Human beings live close to the surface of this structure on the luminous side. Our planet is situated close to the center of the gigantic structure in a landmass called Jambudvip. That is surrounded by the other islands and oceans. In the middle, there is a mountain chain which culminates in Sumeru Mountain. That is where the Devas live. The Srimad Bhagavatam gives a detailed explanation of the different beings who live in different parts of this structure. This is the part of the Vedic universe that is most difficult to understand, especially because it brings to the mind the idea of a flat earth, which is obviously not the case. The Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, states that people living in countries at points diametrically opposite to where the sun is first seen rising will see the sun setting, and if a straight line were drawn from a point where the sun is at midday, the people in countries at the opposite end of the line would be experiencing midnight. Similarly, if people residing where the sun is setting were to go to countries diametrically opposite, they would not see the sun in the same condition. This verse describes the basic notion of the earth as a globe and the motions of the sun resulting in the passages of days and nights as we can observe. When it's midday in Japan, it will be midnight in Brazil, for example. The same Srimad Bhagavatam also describes the movements of the sun that result in the passage of seasons. The only difference is that it explains from a geocentric perspective, while modern astronomy uses a heliocentric model. However, for practical purposes, both work for describing the movements of the sun and of the different stars and planets. As stated, let it be understood at the outset that it makes no difference from the point of view of describing planetary motion whether we take the Earth or the Sun as the center of the solar system, since the only issue is one of relative motion only. Astronomer Fred Hoyle. I can construct for you a spherically symmetrical universe with Earth at its center, and you cannot disprove it based on observations. You can only exclude it on philosophical grounds. In my view, there is absolutely nothing wrong in that. Physicist George F.R. Ellis. We know now that the difference between a heliocentric and a geocentric theory is one of motions only, and that such a difference has no physical significance. Astronomer Fred Hoyle. Apart from that, the Srimad Bhagavatam describes that in the higher dimensional universe of the Devas, other intermediary planetary systems are on the same plane as our planet and can be accessed by sufficiently evolved beings through interplanetary passages. It's described, for example, that Parikshit Maharaj, the grandson of the Pandavas, was able to visit other parts of Jambudvip and receive tribute from the different kings living there. For us, however, the other parts of Jambudvip are inaccessible since we don't have the required level of consciousness, and thus we are isolated in our little planet. Richard L. Thompson, Sadaputra Prabhu, explains that the description of Jambudvip offered in the Srimad Bhagavatam actually includes 4 different explanations. According to one's previous knowledge and area of interest, one could get one of these 4 understandings from the same explanation. This is possible due to the nature of the Sanskrit language, where the same words can have more than a meaning, and thus an expert poet is capable of composing sentences that have multiple simultaneous meanings. One elementary example of this clever usage of the Sanskrit language is given in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Duryodhana, not wanting to displease neither Bhishma nor Drona, his 2 senior generals, used a clever construction to praise both at the same time, using the sentence aparyaptam tad asmakam balam Bhishma Birakshitam. This sentence simultaneously means our strength is immeasurable because we are protected by Bhishma, or our strength is insufficient because we are protected by Bhishma. When Bhishma heard the sentence, he took the first meaning and was therefore encouraged. Dronacharya, on the other hand, took the second meaning, understanding that Duryodhana was glorifying him by minimizing the capacity of his rival. Such clever usage of words is common in Sanskrit literature. However, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it goes to a completely new level of complexity. According to Sadaputra Prabhu, the first explanation is Bhumandala as a stereographic projection, or a planisphere, of our planet taking the North Pole as the center. This is commonly used to represent the features of a sphere on a map. His research indicates these maps were used for astronomical purposes, helping one to understand the movements of the sun, planets, and important stars. Such planispheres were also used in instruments such as the astrolabe. The second is Bhumandala as a topographic map of South Central Asia, offering a basic description of the geography of our planet, with a focus in the area of the Himalayas, India, and adjacent countries, with a description of the different rivers which flowed there in antiquity. The third explanation is as a map of the solar system. In this explanation, the borders of the different islands describe the orbits of the planets of our solar system from the geocentric point of view adopted on the Puranas. Finally, the fourth explanation is as a map of the intermediary planetary system, as observed and experienced by the Devas, as explained previously. In this way, in just a single explanation, Srimad Bhagavatam offers astronomical, geographical, and mystical knowledge. Naturally, the geographical and astronomical part is covered by modern geography and astronomy, but the mystical knowledge about the subtle structures of the universe is exclusive to the Puranas. The earth is flat? ? One difficulty with the description of the universe given in the Puranas is that it can be easily misunderstood as a description of a flat earth. In fact, such a misunderstanding is very common, since the subtle aspects of the Vedas, the Vedic universe, are rather difficult to comprehend. The hierarchical description of the universe given in the Puranas matches the sense perception of higher beings. They can easily go from one planet to the other, and for them everything is accessible and connected. One who doesn't understand all these sophisticated concepts can easily get the impression that the Puranas describe a flat earth. The Vedas also explain that before the beginning of Kali Yuga, our present age, different peoples of antiquity were part of a global Vedic culture, and thus had access to the same knowledge. This explains how different groups had similar views of the universe, from the Chinese to the American Indians, including practically everyone in between. However, with the passage of time, most advanced concepts were forgotten, and these different civilizations became stuck with a flat earth concept. This concept ended being described also in the Bible and in the Quran, leading to the modern flat earth theories. Flat earthers are thus actually not totally wrong. The problem is that they base their beliefs in impoverished, incomplete descriptions of the Vedic cosmos, failing to understand its higher aspects. The modern view of the cosmos is purely based on our sense perception, which leads to a mechanistic view of the universe that discards all the subtle and spiritual aspects. Many people instinctively disagree with this materialistic explanation and start looking for a more holistic view of the cosmos that accounts for the subtle dimensions they can understand and sometimes even perceive. It's not a wonder, thus, that there is a growing interest in Vedic cosmology. The Vedas offer a much more complete view of the universe, which accounts for both gross and subtle aspects and allows for the expansion of our consciousness by meditating on the subtle aspects of the universe described in the Vedas. One can gradually elevate his consciousness and attain the same level of awareness as higher beings. Conversely, the materialistic view of the universe offered by modern science offers one a dead universe that leads only to the stagnation of one's consciousness. The fact that our planet is a globe also illustrates another concept given in the Vedas. We think we are imprisoned on this planet because of the law of gravity, but actually we are prisoners of our own consciousness. One who tries to access higher realms by mechanical means will not be able to go anywhere, just like a person who tries to escape our planet by walking will just come back to the same place after circumambulating the globe. He may go to Mars or Venus, but without changing his consciousness, he will remain stuck in this gross dimension and will not be able to find anything interesting there. Real freedom is thus connected with the expansion of one's own consciousness. Without a change in consciousness, one may go anywhere in the cosmos, but he will remain in prison. Other planetary systems. Apart from our immediate surroundings, Srimad Bhagavatam describes other planetary systems that comprise our universe. This hierarchical view of the universe illustrates the different levels of consciousness of their inhabitants. Races that have a consciousness too much focused on matter live under the ground, without access to the light of the sun. In the Vedic universe, their abodes are organized in the lower planetary systems below our plane. Many of these are actually described as heavenly realms, where the inhabitants live in great material opulence and try to enjoy their senses to the fullest extent, while others are not so desirable. At the bottom, they are the hellish planets, where souls that committed serious crimes go to pay for their debts before they can take their next births. To fall into these lower realms can lead to very difficult and painful experiences. Therefore, the Puranas alert for the existence of such places so that we may avoid the course of actions that leads there. What is more interesting, however, is the higher planetary systems, to where one can ascend to the degree he can purify and elevate his consciousness through the practice of a spiritual process. The closest planetary system to us is Bhuvarloka, where different subtle beings live, notably the Yakshas and Rakshasas. It's described that their realm starts in the upper atmosphere, very close to us, but despite this, we can't see, since they live in a subtle dimension. Due to this proximity, however, they can easily contact human beings, which leads to many mystical experiences narrated through history. They are a mixed bag, including benevolent and malevolent entities. These beings from Bhuvaloka are, however, different from ghosts, disembodied human beings living in our plane, because they live on a plane where they have different sense objects and can thus enjoy life just as we do, different from ghosts that are subtle beings stuck in a gross plane where they can't interact with people or objects. This plane of Bhuvarloka is described as a beautiful place with lakes and forests controlled by Kuvera, who possesses great material opulence. Higher is the planetary system of Svargaloka, where the Devas live in great delight. Because they live on the top of the plane of Bhumandala, their days and nights are different. For them, the sun is continuously circling around, and they see more light during the period when it's summer. For us, when the sun goes high in the vertical plane, and less light when it's winter for us when the sun goes lower. They take this as days and nights. Therefore, a set of day and night for them equals 1 year for us. They live for 10,000 such years, therefore their lifespan is quite long. The main difference between the Devas and Asuras is that the first group has a subtle consciousness, focused on subtle material enjoyment, connected with music, dance, and arts, while the second group has a gross consciousness focused on material objects and gross enjoyment, thorough tact, and taste. One group is interested in the subtle aspects of matter, while the other is interested in the gross aspects. This difference is explained in the book Mystic Universe by Ashish Dallela. Higher still are the higher planetary systems of Maharloka, Janaloka, and Tapaloka, inhabited by pure souls who are very serious in the path of self-realization. These realms are described in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. The souls in Maharloka live in great serenity, living in a pristine environment and dedicating their time to chant mantras and offer oblations to the fire, while souls in Janaloka and Tapaloka practice meditation. There are other abodes described in Srimad Bhagavatam, including the abodes of Saptarishi and Dhruvaloka, which is a spiritual planet appearing inside our universe, but for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to include them here. These different abodes can be observed from Earth as the numerous stars we see in the night sky. Above all, there is Brahmaloka, the abode of Brahma, the architect of this particular universe. Brahmaloka is a very subtle abode which is not observable from Earth. Hierarchically, it is situated at the very top. During the existence of the universe, many pious souls gradually elevate themselves through the different planetary systems up to this level where they can continue living until the end of the universe. When the universe reaches its end, all these pious souls go alongside Brahma to the spiritual realm. One important point when we study the Vedic universe is the distances. All the measurements of the universe given in the Puranas are based on a unit called yojana. This is a measure of distance based on the distance a horse can run before getting tired. As different horses can run different distances before getting tired, the length of the yojana varies through different sources, sometimes as 5 miles, 8 miles, etc. Similarly, there is all reason to contemplate the possibility that the yojana may vary across the cosmos, reflecting the concept of distance of the inhabitants in different planetary systems. Therefore, although Bhumandala is only 500,000 yojanas from one extreme to the other, roughly the size of our solar system, the vertical dimension would be extraordinarily bigger, since the size of the yojana would become exponentially bigger as one advances to higher planetary systems. If one accepts this idea, the universe starts to look more like a cone, where the narrow side represents the lower levels of consciousness of human beings and asuras, and the larger side represents the higher states of consciousness of more elevated beings. In this model, Bhumandala is on the narrow side of the universe, and thus its dimensions are relatively modest on a cosmic scale, while higher planetary systems are on the wide side, which is practically infinitely big. This view is capable of harmonizing the descriptions of the Puranas with the huge cosmic distances that can be observed in modern astronomy. The main point is that although we are limited by such distances, higher beings are not. Let me see, might need to start a part 3. Well, no, actually this is almost done, so I can just continue. Why study the Vedic universe? The great contribution of the model of the universe given in the Puranas is that it gives a mystical and theistic view of the universe, a universe that is teeming with life. By meditating in these descriptions, one can gradually elevate his consciousness and attain the same level of awareness as higher beings. This is the view of the universe that is going to be presented in the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, the TOVP, when it is inaugurated in 2022. So it must have already been inaugurated then. Conversely, the materialistic view of the universe offered by modern science, based solely on observation using our gross senses, offers one a dead universe that leads only to the stagnation of one's consciousness. The great challenge when we study the model of the universe given in the Srimad Bhagavatam is to reconcile what we can observe with our gross sense perception and the ideas of multi-dimensions, different sets of senses, and degrees of consciousness, and the idea of a subtle vertical dimension. Without understanding these concepts, one may end up with some simplistic or limited understanding. And thus concludes this discussion about the Vedic cosmology of the universe and the planetary systems. So it is a very unique perspective, and I wanted to share that with all of you today. And I might go ahead and discuss more on this topic in my next coming videos. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to write down below. And you all have a wonderful day.